Well, hello there all you absolutely magnificent people, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays. We talk about nature while playing games. My name is Will, I'm an ecologist by training, and this is Nightingale, when we are heading over to Welkin's Reach, the third story realm. So let's go for it. And here we are. Now the interesting thing about this realm is that, well, gravity is very, very weak over here. So we can jump very far, we can basically fly. It is quite marvelous. I have also upgraded my gun here. I've got a new rifle, and I can use this to shoot multiple times before reloading, which is very, very nice. But here we are. This is Welkin's Reach, and wow, we can really, really launch up into the air. Now the thing is, we do of course have a limited stamina, so we can't just glide forever, but we can glide quite a bit. And I would like to actually have a look at some of the creatures we can find in this realm. So I'm going to land on this island, floating island up here. Reminds me very much of Avatar, of course, with the Hallelujah Mountains, with the floating islands there. And of course there are some quests here to help the Calcularia people over here, because, well, they basically crash landed over here. We're not going to delve too much into that. We are focusing mostly on the ecology after all. Now down there we do have the Elephas again, which we talked about in the previous episodes. If you haven't checked that one out, it's right up there at the top. And then we also have two monarch locusts over there, as well as Catine. I have not sure what on earth a Catine is, but let's go have a look, shall we? The monarch locusts should be something interesting to chat about, so let's specifically have a look at them. And there are some bound over there as well. Well, there were some bound in the area. But then we have the monarch locusts over here. And I think the monarch locust, yeah, it is attacking us indeed. Let's just wrap that up. Interesting, it is in the hopper phase, so it wouldn't really be locust at this point in time. Oh, there's another one that's joining us. Hello there. Okay. They are aggressive. They are, well, they're kind of aggressive. And they are kind of predatory. Oh wait, never mind, this one isn't flightless. It is actually, it can fly, it's got wings. For some reason I thought it was the hopper stage, but no, you can see there are some wings in the back there. Okay, so we'll chat about locusts in a moment. Let's just first pick up everything we can. Now I do have a new axe pick, and it also comes with Oberon's Bounty, which I can place on it. And then I can just whack any rock, one hit, or any tree, one hit, and yeah, harvest it. It does make resource harvesting so much quicker and so much easier. Now, of course, we also do have some Cape aloes over here, the aloe ferox, the bitter aloe, we've got them as well. I also chatted about them in the previous episode, so go check that out for more information about this amazing succulent over here. And then we also have dahlias over here as well. So the dahlias are also flowering in this realm. I believe there are some more, maybe to the side. There we go. Now dahlias, like this one over here, belong to the daisy family. They are in the Asteraceae family and generally grown more for their flowers and for the beauty of the flowers than anything else. But they do have some edible tubers. At least some species are edible. Oh, are you still alive? No. It's dead. For some reason it looked like it was moving. It wasn't moving. Okay, let's just quickly check where the Catine is. Right over here. Oh, I think it is sleeping. I think it's this little thing that is sleeping over here. You know, I expected a Catine to actually be like a cat-like thing, but this is a little tiny, almost a little piglet type thing. It's got a very weird appearance. Okay, so very difficult to actually know what on earth is going on there. It does have this weird tentacle-like mouth, indicating to me that maybe it is a herbivore and it feeds on very specific plant parts, so it needs those tentacles to actually grip properly and then ingest. It's got relatively big ears, it seems, as well, so most likely, because there are the ears over there, and there are some horned protrusions at the top there, so it possibly has very good hearing. And then also the horns over there, most likely used in territorial displays or to fight other catines. It does have claws though, so maybe this is in fact a teeny tiny predator. It could be wrong. I mean, we're not seeing this little one doing anything. It's just kind of lying here. I'm not even sure whether it is alive or not. But maybe it is a little hunter of smaller things like rodents and so, and it is in fact not a herbivore. This is the thing with alien ecology. It's very difficult to know what on earth these different things are doing, if you know. Here's another one that is also sleeping right over here. But the main animals in this realm here would be the monarch locusts. So let's have a look at them while I chat a bit more about dahlias. Because yes, dahlias are grown mostly for their flowers, but in South America, South and Central America, their tubers may also be eaten. They have kind of sweet potato-like tubers that can be eaten. And before 1923, when insulin was discovered, they were used to treat diabetics, as well as people suffering from TB. And that's because the tubers contain inulin, which is a polysaccharide. It is also present in things like your sunchokes or your Jerusalem artichokes. They also have got inulin in their tubers, and it's generally quite good and healthy. Now, back to these little guys over here, the monarch locusts. Now, these ones are actually behaving like proper locusts. They are swarming. And that's basically the difference between grasshoppers and locusts. Grasshoppers are solitary, whereas locusts swarm together, generally in massive swarms. So this is still a small swarm over here. I think there are only like 5 or 6 of them in there. But very often locusts reach plague proportions. And they start out as these tiny little hoppers, flightless and generally solitary. And when they encounter another individual, they tend to then hop away from them. They don't like congregating together, because grouping together means you are competing with other individuals for food resources. Oh, hello there, now you are aggressive, okay. And they don't want to do that. Just going to end this one. And I think, there we go, the others are also coming our way, heading our way, using their very powerful back legs, of course, to jump at us. Now, generally, locusts are herbivores. However, when they are swarming like this, they can be cannibalistic. So meat is meat and food is food. So they are known to actually eat other locusts, not just injured ones. They will eat whichever one they fancy. So it's dangerous to actually be in a swarm. So why do it? Because, well, there's safety in numbers. Because if you start swarming, and we'll chat about that in a moment, but if you start swarming, everything, all the birds and bat-eared foxes, for example, all kinds of other carnivores will come for you. They will try to eat you. And generally, you don't want to be eaten. So they stick together to try and minimize the likelihood that they are going to be the one that gets eaten. But why do they swarm? Why do they go from being solitary and preferring to hop away from other individuals? Why do they then become social or gregarious? Well, it has to do with their knees bumping against one another. As their numbers increase, they start bumping into one another more frequently. And where initially they move away from other individuals, once they get to a certain abundance and they bump into one another more frequently, well, then they actually start secreting hormones such as serotonin, and then they start clumping together. That serotonin means that they then start growing wings, and they also become more social. And that then results in them actually swarming together. And then we call them locusts. We also have a Salket scorpion up here, so we'll have a look at it in a moment. We're just going to first finish this locust over here as well. It is green in color. Usually locusts, even though they are in their millions, they still want to be camouflaged. So each individual still wants to be camouflaged. So there will be shades of brown or green. So the green color there, generally quite a good camouflage. But not really in this alien landscape here. I would have thought they would prefer being more blue in color. We just have to try to stay out of the range, out of the way of those snipers over there. Oh, the scorpion is running away. Okay, it seems there we go. The scorpion is in fact here. Oh, it is a strong one. Oh, there's its weak point is, there we go, right in front. Okay, it is surprisingly strong. Good to know. Alright, now notice a scorpion has got 8 legs and then the 2 pedipalps. And even though the pedipalps over here, let's go like this. Even though these pedipalps over here looks like they are a 5th pair of legs, the pedipalps here are part of the mouth parts of the scorpion. They do have their chelicerae as well, which they will use to actually chew the food and then ingest it with their mouth parts in the center there. But these pedipalps are used to grip the prey so that they can then sting them. And there is the stinger right over there. And this one looks like it is a moderately venomous one because it doesn't have a very thick tail like a thick-tailed scorpion in the Buthidae family, for example. And it has moderately big pincers over here, also indicating that gripping their prey is perhaps more important than just stinging them quickly. So it probably needs to sting a few times for the prey animals to die. However, as you can see here, it is big compared to us, so it probably wouldn't need to sting more than once for it to actually kill us. So for us, with our relatively small body size, that is a big scorpion, and probably a deadly one at that. Now, scorpions are perfectly adapted for life in the deserts, and generally in arid areas, and that's where they do best. There are also scorpions that are found in forested environments, but they tend to do best in these hot, dry environments. Oh, we got marigolds as well. Yay! Oh, I love marigolds. Oh, we just see those little flower stalks here. We don't actually see the leaves of the marigolds. But yeah, lovely. Marigolds, like the dahlias, also in the Asteraceae family. Generally, you grow marigolds to try and keep pests away from your garden, from your veggies in particular. However, this year we planted a lot of marigolds, and wow, we had so many actually growing. And then the snails and slugs came, and they actually ate all our marigolds. We have two marigolds left. The rest were all eaten, and we probably had like 50-60 marigolds growing. The rest of them were all eaten by the snails. So much for keeping our plants safe. They couldn't even protect themselves. Now let's have a look whether we can actually catch an interesting fish here. Oh, a bronze porcupine fish. The porcupine fish I generally associate more with the marine environment. Porcupine fish able to swell up quite a bit. They ingest water very quickly to then swell up, and generally they're quite spiny as well. The idea being, more difficult. Ooh, a tier 3 desert fish. Doesn't have a name, it's just a tier 3 desert fish. We found a new species, everybody. We found a new species. With the porcupine fish, they tend to swell up to try and prevent predators from actually eating them, because while they are more difficult to swallow when they actually are bigger, when they have ingested water, additionally the spines means that they're not generally good to handle or easy to handle, and they may get stuck in your throat while you are trying to swallow them. So predators then may leave them alone. Now this desert fish here, it is quite a big species. It's also putting up quite a fight here. We're trying to keep the tension bar there in the middle, because that means that we actually do more damage to its stamina, and there we go, we have caught the tier 3 desert fish, whatever that is. However, the tier 3 desert fish is just a tier 2 fish. The porcupine fish that was so easy to catch is actually a tier 3 fish. Something isn't adding up here. There we go, there's another bronze porcupine fish. Yeah, this is much easier to catch. I must say, the fishing in this game is also quite nice. It's better than just like in old World of Warcraft, just clicking a button and voila, you have caught a fish. You've actually got to work a little bit for your fishies here. Oh, I hear an elephant, not sure whether they are coming towards the water now. Elephants, and most likely the elephants as well, do need to drink water, so water holes like this one, extremely important for their continued survival in desert landscapes, and they are what we call a water-dependent species. So, not very well suited for life in the desert, but they do alright. They are big, so they can travel quite far distances to get to water, and they know where the water sources are. Most likely also very long-lived species, which means that over the years they've built up this knowledge of where to find water, where to find food, how to survive in the desert environment. There we go, we just caught another desert fish. And let's try one more. I want to catch another porcupine fish. And there we go, there is our bronze porcupine fish again. Perfect. Okay. Now, I was just about to say that I don't think there's much to talk about, but look at these trees. These are very reminiscent of baobab trees. Now, they most likely are not baobab trees in the Adansonia genus, because, well, we are on an alien planet. But notice these thick, swollen stems. If they are not in the Adansonia genus, well, then this is a good example of convergent evolution, where two unrelated species come up with the same design. These swollen trunks here hold a lot of water. Not like you could tap into it to actually tap water out of it, but in the vessels there would be quite a lot of water stored in the cells, and this tree can use it during droughts, so to stay alive. They generally would also be deciduous, so during the rainy season they would have their leaves, and then in the dry season, which is up to 9 months in some areas, they don't have any leaves whatsoever. They just have the bare branches. They're also called the upside down tree because, well, if they have dropped their leaves, they kind of look like they were planted upside down. And there is at least one old African myth about the baobab tree, which says that when the earth was created, some of the animals were put in charge of planting the plants, and the hyena was put in charge of planting the baobab. And the hyena didn't want to do a proper job, so they just kind of stuck the tree in the ground, and in their stupidity, they put the tree upside down into the ground with the roots sticking up. And that's why the baobab looks like it is actually upside down. But this is a really cool tree. I love baobab trees. We don't have them where I am, but we do have them in South Africa. Always amazing to see them in their natural environment. They also occur on Madagascar, quite a lot of species on Madagascar, and then also in Australia as well. There are some baobabs over there as well, but the majority of the species occur on Madagascar. Now, I think we've actually chatted about most of the nature in this environment, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to head on over to that spot, I think, over there. That is the observatory. I've got to go do a few things there, and that's going to unlock the main area, I think, over there. And I'll meet back with you then when we actually reach the bottom there to chat about the awesome boss that we have got to fight down there. So I will see you guys a little bit later.
Much later.
Alright, we are going down, I believe, down into the site of power in Welkin's Reach. Yes, it does appear so. So, this looks like a massive portal that was made, and if I remember correctly from the notes I've read, a massive creature was pulled through the portal and then bound in the form of a massive scarab. Now, we should be able to find that massive scarab probably down here. Yeah, probably down there. This looks like another boss arena. Alright, I'm honestly not sure whether we are ready for this, but we're going to try nonetheless. And I believe this is Sheliak. There we go, Sheliak's yoke. Okay, so that is, in fact, Sheliak, at least Sheliak partly bound in the form of a massive scarab. Now, Sheliak is very angry and will throw stuff at us, but she can also charge. And being a typical scarab, charges straight. And now she will expose her belly, which is her weakness. But she very quickly rectifies herself. It's really interesting to see her actually take flight. Oh yeah, that's definitely a scarab shape. You can see the small little head. And then a big round body. This one, she seems almost armored as well. But it's very interesting to see when she wants to fly, how she lifts the elytra and then brings out the membranous wing that she flies with. Really, really awesome to see. Okay, now what we need are rocks to mine. Oh, there we go, there are rocks to mine here. And by mining these, we should then be able to build a pillar that she can then charge into at some point. Right, like that. And then we should be able to shoot her weak spot. It's just a question of constantly building pillars, getting her to dash into the pillars, like that, and then shooting the weak spot, like that. Now, scarabs are, of course, incredibly important beetles. The dung beetles belong to the Scarabidae family. But they're not the only scarabs around. There are some other scarabs as well. But the main, to me, whenever I think of scarabs, I, of course, think of, dung beetles. And the scarabs, of course, were also sacred. If you're looking at Egyptian mythology, they were very, very important. And, of course, their role in the environment also extremely important. Because they are responsible for things like... oh dear, now I wasted that opportunity by gliding into the air. And there we go. Another opportunity. Now, of course, beetles can rectify their position, can right themselves if they do accidentally end up on their back, like we saw there. She isn't completely defenseless. I have seen quite a few beetles accidentally end up on their back. Usually when they were fighting one another, they would try to throw one another off, and then sometimes they would end up on their back, and those types of things would happen. And the best way to right yourself is actually to use your wings to lift up that outer wings, and that in that way flip yourself the right way around. And I think this should be it. If I can just stop missing. One more shot. You see, I missed just too many shots there. And there we go. This should be it. If I can just line up a nice shot here. There we go. Sheliak's yoke has been slain. Wonderful. You know what? We are here. We may as well mine this. And finally, Sheliak has been released. And this is now the form she is in. Well, that went better than I expected. But as I was mentioning, there was a species of scarab in Egypt, the sacred scarab, literally called the sacred scarab, that was sacred to them. And that one in particular is Scarabaeus sacer. That was the sacred, or is the sacred dung beetle. Alright, we're just going to grab Sheliak's chitin and Sheliak's meteor. There we go. And of course, Empyrean knowledge. And some essences, and time to go home. Now, Sheliak there was a really massive scarab. And the way that insect breathing works, she would require a very, very high concentration of oxygen to actually reach that size, or to be able to survive, because they don't breathe like us with typical lungs. Instead, oxygen kind of diffuses in through their spiracles, through their little breathing holes that they have under those wing covers. So under the hard elytra, they've got these spiracles, and then oxygen just kind of diffuses in through that. And with that type of breathing, if the oxygen concentration is similar to what we have on Earth at the moment, it's not enough for the oxygen really to diffuse into where it is needed inside the body of the scarab. But with higher oxygen concentrations, like we had during the Carboniferous period on Earth, with that there's a high enough oxygen concentration to diffuse successfully into the tissue, through the spiracles into the tissue of the beetle. So large scarabs like that would only be able to survive if there's a very, very high oxygen concentration. And I mean, Sheliak there was much bigger than any scarab we've ever had on Earth. But I mean, it is an alien world, this is an alien realm, so anything is possible. It's just that it is much bigger than would be possible, or realistic, at least. So, let's quickly close this old portal, and let's open up Magwitch Marshes, because, well, this is where we should be going next. Alright, here we go. Alright, it seems as though we're actually starting immediately with some bound here. Okay, yes, indeed, some bound vermin and grendel brutes. And, oh, hello. Yeah, take that. Oh, wow. You guys are much stronger than I'm used to. So we're just going to go over here and shoot as much as we can. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to survive this. I should have drunk a potion. Oh, there we go. Thankfully, Percy is kind of drawing their fire. There we go. Or their attention, at least. And for some reason, this rifle of mine is not as strong as I was hoping it would be. Oh, here we go. Here comes some more. I'm just going to run away, you know, because why not? Running away is it's an accepted strategy. Perfectly acceptable. So yeah, those were the bound vermin. Not particularly fond of them. I will need to clear that area, but I think the best way to do that is actually to get a better rifle. Ooh, we've got something new here. Leporodons. So lepus would be rabbit or hare genus actually. Leporodon would be some kind of hare-like beast, in other words. They're also fen rats. I haven't seen a fen rat really, but Leporodon, yeah, I believe they are predators though. So they're predatory lagomorphs, or, well, rabbits and hares basically. And with how weak we were against those bound vermin, I'm not sure how we're going to fare against Leporodons. Now we have kind of unfortunately abandoned Percy. Percy is still injured up there. There we go. Percy is alive again. Yay! Hello, Percy. Good job. Well done. I do need to get Percy some better clothing because, I mean, look at this. He's still equipped with the gear score 10 and 11 armor. No wonder Percy dies so quickly. Shame. Alright, but there should be some more creatures and plants to have a look at here. I believe these are just normal trees, but if you actually look on them, you can see the fungi growing on here. So the fungus here would be digesting some of the dead wood inside, perhaps killing this tree actually, because it most likely is actually consuming some of the more living cells as well, so the inner bark, and it's definitely damaging the tree to some extent here. But notice how these little fungi are growing, massive clusters. So the mycelium would be the fungal body, and that is located underneath the bark here, and it is spread throughout the bark. And then when conditions are right, like now in the rainy season, we have got the fungal fruiting bodies bursting through the outer bark, and now they are spreading their spores. And if you look closely, you can see these little pits or grooves running on the underside of this fungus. This is from where the spores will be dispersed. And they will be producing millions and millions and millions of spores, which will come out of these spores kind of like this fine mist and will then blow all over the place. And 99.999% of those spores will not survive, will not reach a suitable place to actually grow and to form a new fungus. But one in how many ever million may find a perfect spot to actually grow. And then, let's say they end up over, let's say it blows all the way along here, and it ends up coming right over here. And it lands up in a nice little pocket in the bark of this tree. And it's moist, it is dark enough for them to start growing and survive, not in bright sunlight, and maybe there's a wound in the bark here, and it finds a way inside, and now it starts growing. So of those millions and millions and millions of spores being produced, maybe one is able to survive. But that's all they need. That one can now produce millions and millions and millions of spores as well. So they're really just playing the numbers game. Now, I'm not sure whether we get anything if we hit it. Yeah, we do get mushrooms. Okay, so normal old mushrooms. Let's have a look. There we go, some Leporidon over there. Oh, a whole herd of them. They are predators, so they are quite dangerous to us. Notice very kangaroo-like in behavior as well, even though they most likely are lagomorphs, and we'll have a good look at their teeth if we can, when we actually have hunted some of these. They're standing on their hind legs, most likely to look out over all these taller plants here to look for prey. And I think they can jump. They do seem to have very powerful hind legs that they most likely can jump with. But normally when they want to move from point A to point B and there's no rush, they just walk normally. They don't have to hop the whole time. But hopping is a nice way to save energy and move very, very quickly. Okay. Can you hop? Yeah, you can hop. Okay. Vocalizations there to most likely call the attention of the others. Very effective. Well, they would have been very effective if we weren't more effective, but they split up. Oh, hello. There we go, okay. Got them. Oh, now it's hailing. Okay, we do need to get our umbrellas out because it is now hailing. But let's have a look here. Can we see the teeth? They do seem to have 2 incisors in the top and 2 incisors in the bottom, which means they're not lagomorphs, which means they're actually closer to rodents, most likely. Because rodents have those gnashing incisors, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Lagomorphs and hyraxes have 2 and 4. One group has 2 on the top and 4 incisors in the bottom. Other group has 4 incisors on the top and 2 in the bottom. Yeah, massive ears, and I guess this is where they get their Leporidon name from, because the big ears here are very reminiscent of rabbit ears or hare ears as well, and it most likely means they've got very, very good hearing. They do also have these horned projections all over their face. I suspect that is not for defense, but more likely to actually fight with one another, to when they're tussling, to try and injure one another or to intimidate their rivals. So these are most likely very, very aggressive. Predators, yes, but also very territorial, as predators very often are. Also, very long claws on their front limbs here. Not sure whether they've got massive claws on the hind limbs as well. We kind of need one out in the open to have a look there. Yeah, they do, yeah, so they can use that for grip to jump more effectively. But of course, when they land on their prey, their hind legs as well as their front legs will be used to pin their prey down. And I assume, then they will use those gnashing incisors we can see there to actually injure their prey and kill their prey. Very similar to what we have with Thylacoleo, the marsupial lion that was in Australia. During the Ice Age period, they had these gnashing incisors in front, which along with a very, very strong bite force would most likely have resulted in severe injuries in their prey, allowing them to take down surprisingly big prey. And I suspect these Leporidon most likely are feeding on the fen rats that are in the area, which are, quite small, but they most likely will also be taking down some of the larger prey. Obviously feeding on the bound as well, because food is food. But they most likely also will be feeding on the buffalo and the hippo-like creatures we have got in the marshes here as well. But let's just quickly chat about the marshes as well. But before we do that, just a reminder that I do now have my channel memberships open as well. I've made it as cheap as possible. You'll get earlier access to videos. There are some special badges and emotes that you can use. When I start live streaming again, you'll be able to use those emotes as well. And of course, it is completely voluntary. all the videos that I do make available for members first will also become available for non-members to view. It will just be a little bit later. So members have early access 1 day ahead of everyone else for these normal videos. These normally Tuesdays and Fridays videos become available on Mondays and Thursdays. And then any special videos I make about insects and all kinds of interesting nature that I find when on hikes and when on expeditions, well, those will come out about a month ahead of everybody else. So members will have access about a month ahead of everybody else. But that's just a way to show extra support for the channel because, well, the channel hasn't been doing as well as I would have hoped these past few months just because of the way that YouTube works. So it's not been a great few months. All right, but let's talk about the marshes. Let's look at something positive. The marshes here. Well, this area is extremely flat. There are some higher lying areas, and any rain falling there, the water will trickle down and accumulate in these lower lying areas. We are most likely also on either a very shallow bedrock or generally a less permeable sediment. So maybe you've got very dense clay over here underneath the marshes here, meaning that when it rains, water struggles to infiltrate into the soil and you end up with a lot of standing water. That possibly could be why we have so much water accumulating here in the marshes. It could also just be that this realm has a lot of rain falling. More rain falling than can actually infiltrate into the soil. And we have just obtained a new little plant here, water spinach, that we can harvest as well. Now, real world water spinach doesn't quite look like this, but I've got some water spinach growing at home as well. I've got it in our little water feature. The water spinach here kind of resembles more lettuce than anything else. But this is a very nice food to use when you're cooking stuff because you've got extra health, extra stamina, extra hunger mitigation. Yeah, that is just a lovely little food to include in your food. Right. But I think this is actually where we are going to call it a day, everybody. So thank you very much for joining me on my little expedition here. Hope you had fun. I had a blast, as always, even though we died up there. And I will go back and off screen just go and wipe out the bound there. But next time we're going to explore the marshes a little bit more and see what else we can encounter. And I think that will most likely, at least for now, be the last episode in the Nightingale series. And I have a very special one lined up for after that. So until next time, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Cheers.